It is recorded.
Okay, sure. Sure.
So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ashraf Anbiya wa alihi wa sahbihi. Uh, Presentation with of today one. Right. So we are in the session later. So in the last session we read how it topic. So today I want to read the remaining of the topic. Okay. Today in the last session, we discuss on the relevance of religion, relevance of religions, according to almarhum Professor Kamal Hassan. He in this subtopic highlighted number of religions in order to show the important religion can can help reduce that globalization. All right, not like secular science. And for him to say marhum and so like communication lagging Okay, hopefully I'm not lagging anymore.
Actually, we can hear you, doctor. No, it's not lagging. Actually, it's working perfectly fine.
Oh, alhamdulillah. Okay, so now it is better, right? Okay,
Yes, doctor. Yes.
alright, alright. Okay, thank you, Shafi. So, okay, I will continue with the
Pihak
remaining.
dokumen tanah sudah teremik.
Okay, so we stop until Buddhism, alright? When almarhum Prof he quoted from uh, Pracha Hutanwater, a Thai intellectual.
Doctor, your screen is not visible. Actually, we cannot see your screen.
Okay, so Alhamdulillah, I managed to come back. Hopefully, it is still functioning. Shafi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you perfectly.
All right.
Yes.
So I think I have to share it again. The uh, the excerpt that okay. So this is the excerpt. Okay, the parts of the book that I've scanned. Okay. All right. Okay. So Almarhum Prof. After he quoted from Buddhism, from Confucianism, from Hinduism in order to show to us the relevance of religions, right? Meaning to say at least religions will be able to curb the side effect globalization like the so we come to the remaining parts of the last subtopic. Okay? Planned and orchestrated. Okay, after this one is after he quoted about Buddhism, as highlighted by Pracha Hutanuwater, a Thai intellectual. Buddhism also has been affected by globalization. People become greedy, okay, as highlighted by this Thai intellectual. People become greedy. Buddhism supposedly stress on uh, refraining from worldly affairs, but because of the globalization, Buddhists themselves they became more concerned on worldly gains, right? For example, okay. So the carefully planned and orchestrated globalization in bracket of the world has vast implications and repercussions on the Muslim world, made up of 57 countries of the OIC, from Morocco in the west to Mindanao in the east, and on Islam. Right? So it also affects the Muslim world, ranging from Morocco in the west, okay, the perhaps the far west, and then the far east in Mindanao. As part of the G17, 133 countries which represents 80% of the world's population, Muslim leaders have expressed their grave concern over the globalization of finance and the policies as well as the adverse advice of the International Monetary Fund or the IMF. Alright, so yes, IMF perhaps as typically we heard how IMF uh, impose certain regulations in order to help a country, then the country needs to abide by these certain regulations that according to critics these regulations are actually trying to exploit them, right, or oppress the country, okay, the country that is in need. Many who attended the G77 summit in Havana in April 2000 expressed their desire to cooperate and work towards the reform of the international financial architecture, having suffered badly either from the devastating effects of currency attacks or the conditions set by IMF. All right, just like I mentioned just now, yes, the conditions set by IMF to revive the ailing economies of the South. The South meaning to say the poor countries, all right, or the so-called third world countries, all right. The North, the countries of the North, they are the developed, okay, and the so-called advanced countries, while the South are the countries that belong to the South are the countries that are poor. In the face of the globalizing trend of homogenization of culture, the hegemony of Western mass media and secularization, the Muslim world community or the Ummah solidarity is severely tested. Alright, according to Almarhum Prof, because of this globalizing trend of homogenization of culture. Yeah. The culture of what? The culture that is shaped by the hegemonic Western mass media, which is a secular culture. All right. So this put Muslim Ummah into in severe test. Very difficult for us Muslims to face because this is the dominant, all right, the dominant culture. The Muslim world community, there have been among the Muslims those who advocate the complete embrace of modernization and secularization in order to achieve progress. Okay? So some Muslims already succumb to this new culture, all right, in the names of progress, while some would prefer to withdraw into totally spiritual or mystical quietism to seclude themselves. Okay. For Taufik Abdullah, a professor of history in Indonesia, open quote, the most appropriate model for responding to emerging structural and cultural challenges is, in fact, cultivation and re- revitalization of the spirit of Islamic tajdid or renewal or reform, right? For Professor Abdullah, in order to overcome this problem, the problem of these cultural and structural challenges, meaning to say it became the our structure, okay, the societal structure, global structure even, right? Therefore, in order to overcome, we need to go for tajdid. He explains that the early notion of tajdid was related to the need to change a, open quote, lethargic social and cultural environment, close quote. To change the lethargic, tired already, based on blind adherence, taklid to traditional views or practices. For him, tajdid refers to more fundamental issues. So Almarhum Prof, he quotes here from Professor Abdullah. While it may appeal to the authentic Islamic doctrine, okay, by the way, can I see how many of us here? We have a number, Alhamdulillah. We also have physically here Brother Bello, a PhD student, PhD candidate from the Department of Arabic Language and Literature. Right, right, Alhamdulillah. Okay. While it may appeal to authentic Islamic doctrine, its main concern is to discover a proper social and political sphere. This is the definition of tajdid, okay, from the perspective of Professor Abdullah. where Islamic ethical values and doctrinal commitments can find affinities with contextual demands and structural necessities. All right. So meaning to say, perhaps to relevant ties. All right. Our scriptures, religious scriptures, with the current demands. Furthermore, reform means the willingness to know and understand to know and understand changing reality, both empirically and normatively, right? To understand the current norms. So it will be scientific because when it comes to empirical methodology, it means that we are doing scientific research, right? It is the continual and creative dialogue between empirical necessities and doctrinal imperatives that would enable Muslims to develop appropriate responses to unprecedented challenges. So we will be ready if we follow, meaning to say, we relevantise our scriptures with the current context, with the support of empirical methodology. This will enable us to respond to any challenges, right, that may come. In his opinion, the most pressing agenda for Muslim is, open quote, the promotion, encouragement, dissemination, and advancement of a social ethics based on belief in the oneness of God. A Tawhidic ethics, meaning to say based on the belief in the absolute oneness and sovereignty of Allah most gracious, would allow the Muslim community to cope with new challenges while remaining committed to the permanent values of Islam. Right? So according to Prof. Taufik Abdullah, as mentioned by Almarhum Prof, for him, we need to promote Tauhid, alright? The promotion, encouragement, dissemination, and advancement of social ethics. So meaning to say the structure, the societal structure, the government, for example, the cultural elements, all of this must be in line with Tauhid, alright? In order for us to, the Muslim community, to be able to cope with the new challenges. Other than globalization, the issue of ecological crisis is predicted to become a major agenda of the 21st century. All right, this is stated here by Almarhum Prof. Yes, if you notice, I think also, of course, we all notice, especially in Southeast Asia, we face a very hot temperature, right? These past 1 or 2 months, we've been facing this hot temperature. So it is not that stable, right? So stated by Almarhum Prof, other than globalization, the issue of ecological crisis is predicted to become a major agenda of the 21st century as it concretizes the problematic effects of the global economy. Mm. It is already problematic, the global economy, and now added with ecological crisis upon human and society. In this respect, international Christian organizations, namely the World Council of Churches, WCC, and the Vatican, have taken the lead since the 60s in articulating the issues from religious perspective. Oh, all right. So Amarho mentioned here, the Christians, they have been addressing this issue since the 60s, pressuring the guilty parties and criticizing the injustices of the global economic system. A threefold typology of religious environmentalism, which reflects the Christian centeredness of most such activity, is creation, spirituality, eco-justice, and stewardship. So, okay, the Christians, they have this threefold typology of religious environmentalism. The Christian environmentalism, right? Under these three umbrellas. Okay, they use the names of creation, spirituality, eco, justice, and stewardship. The theology of eco spirituality developed by the Christian organizations focuses on the compassion of God for life and the holistic continuity between the human and the natural worlds. Hmm. So they stress on the compassion of God for the universe. All right, and the holistic relationship that we have between human and the natural worlds. All right. Hmm. Okay. The eco-justice perspective that dominates in the WCC is a marriage between liberation theology and creation spirituality. Religious environmentalism, says Peter Bayer, in spite of internal strains between more liberal and more conservative tendencies, is at the moment a predominantly liberal expression of religion. Okay, so they started to realize about, for example, the question of environmental protection, right? So this happened within the Christian community. How many? Oh, we have 3 pages left. Never mind, we'll see whether we will manage to complete our reading today or not. Alright. The problems and issues of the 21st century will force all world religions to search deep into the inner resources to provide answers or solutions to new problems. Alright, so Almarhum Prof here again reiterated for the importance of religions to help us in facing globalization. For Said Hussein Nasr, an internationally renowned Muslim scholar, those challenges are number one, environmental crisis, number two, the global order itself, number three, postmodernism, number four, the secularization of life. These are all interrelated. Number five, the crisis of science and technology. Number six, penetration of non-Islamic values. Seven, the image of Islam. 8. The attitude to other civilizations. 9. Feminism. 10. Human rights. 11. Internal challenges. So all of these more or less interrelated with one another. Okay, as highlighted by Said Hussein Nasr. With regard to environmental issues, he feels sad that although he was one of the very first people who predicted the environmental crisis in the West at a time when nobody spoke about it in his book Man and Nature, the Islamic world is very silent, meaning to say, perhaps on these environmental issues. The Islamic thinkers have not as yet fully understood the challenge of the environment for the future of the globe and for the future of the Islamic world. For Sachiko Murata and William C. Chittick, two professors at the State University of New York, the remedy for the problems of human society, which include hunger, disease, oppression, pollution, and a thousand other human produced ills, is, as Islam sees it, to return to God through religion, which involves Islam, Iman, and Ihsan. Uh, so for the two prominent professors, all of these problems Human produced ills also, right, can be solved if we return to God, right? Return to do Islam, Iman, and Ihsan. Okay. There is no doubt that if religions were to play a more effective and expanded role in the new millennium, they have to have the spiritual, intellectual, and ethical resources to provide the appropriate answers. Mm. Solutions and responses to the issues of the day. So we need to go back to religion because religion will provide us with intellectual, ethical, and therefore will resources and therefore will provide answers. If the established world religions fail to provide the proper guidance as well as holistic action plans for the continued well-being of man and nature in the more challenging years and decades ahead, then the spiritual and moral vacuum will be filled by new religions. Okay, so if religions fail, according to Amarum Prof, to help us in these issues, then there will be a void. Okay? And this void will be filled by new religions. It is afraid that it will be filled by new religions, occult movements, all right, deviant sects, charismatic sects, deviant mysticism, religious fraud, or doomsday cults. So many new deviant teachings right now, for example, right? So people will go to that, okay, groups, right? Perhaps in the name of to have influence, to have more, to have affections, to have connections, right? Because of the pressure by globalization. So as an escape and as an escapism, we call it escapism, right? They escape and join, okay, by joining these deviant groups. The state will have to make room for the expansion of religious based ethics and spiritual values into business, international trade, the professions, industry, educational institutions. So the government must ensure that religious values should be there, all right, in the business sphere, when doing international trade, meaning to say the ethical principle should be there. The media, when the journalists do their reports, right? They should follow certain ethical principle. Okay, I think we can continue a bit to finish. All right, hopefully, Brother Bello, a bit 1 page and a half. Okay, where is it? The media, the judiciary, law enforcement, politics, and international relations. All of these fields should be covered. Okay, which should government should include, all right, should ensure that they are imbued with religious values. The separation of the separation or compartmentalization, okay, compartmentalization of the spiritual values from these worldly affairs is untenable from a holistic religious perspective. Okay, we should not become secular, and its continuation into the millennium would to aggravate the existing crisis. So if it continues to happen, then this will exacerbate the problems. Okay, sufferings, injustices, and conflicts. For an effective synthesis or symbiosis to take place in order to have good combination balance between religion and worldly affairs, proponents of both sides of the divide would have to understand each other well enough to appreciate the necessity of the synthesis. All right, so those secularists supposedly should appreciate, should recognize that religions are needed, right? It is important for the ruling elites and corporate leaders to understand that mainstream religion in general provides a holistic meaning to human life and underscores the spiritual essence of man. For the Muslim, religion helps to define his true and lasting identity as the servant or abd of the one true God and the only creature entrusted with the trust of vicegerency or khilafah on his earth. Right? The primordial spiritual and moral nature of man, fitrah, craves after peace, goodness, virtue, and submission to a transcendent power. So we need this because these are our fitrah, right? We need God. It abhors evil, depravity, corruption, greed, injustice, and falsehood as belonging to the satanic realm. And these fruits of base desire are the causes of man's misery and chaos in nature. All right. So if we follow our desire, we will be doomed, right? By appealing to man's yearning for ultimate felicity and true happiness in life after death, and his fear of ultimate suffering and indignity, religion helps man to achieve self-control and self-restraint needed to overcome the unending temptations of worldly and ephemeral objects such as power, affluence, status, and influence. Yes, today perhaps we also realize many people want to become influencers. Sometimes the contents created are not that good, but still in the name of becoming influencers, they did that, right? By subjecting human reason to the higher truths of spiritual knowledge, religion molds a wholesome, balanced, and coherent human personality as a basis for wholesome society, culture, and civilization. So that's why we need religions. It is our conviction that the impact of serious moral failure, unethical practices, and moral corruption in business, corporation, media, politics, and government in the nation state will continue to undermine our quality of life. And some of this unethical conduct will have global consequences in an interdependent world economy and world systems of tomorrow. All right, because we are living in the globalized world, so everything is interconnected, so the culture can be transmitted easily. All right, the specter of ozone depletion, global currency manipulation, and cyber crimes are some of the new global threats. All right, so I think you also notice all of this mentioned by Almarhum Prof is okay, are happening right now, even though he wrote this one quite okay in 2011, if I'm not mistaken. Legislation alone is obviously inadequate to combat the moral corruption in the institutions and system. A pervasive ethical consciousness which generates virtuous and righteous conduct among leaders and followers is needed to check further moral decay. So the laws are not enough. We also need political will, right? This consciousness is best nurtured by religion and spiritual dash moral education, which together foster a deep sense of accountability to and love of the supreme being. All right. So religion is important. This spiritual dash moral conscience and consciousness, which transcend personal, racial, ethnics, or national loyalties, is a more effective force in challenging the gods of selfish. All right. At least, okay, religions manage to challenge okay, the gods of selfish and unjust vested interests. As Robert Dixon Crane, former U.S. ambassador to UAE and personal advisor to U.S. presidents, put it, okay, this is the last quote before we finish the first chapter. Okay, the battle between good and evil in the world is a battle between those who submit to Allah and those who worship the false gods of power, prestige, and pleasure. Oh, so Robert Dixon Crane recognized Allah. right? Or the false gods of any ideology or party that seeks other than the pleasure of Allah. This is in essence a spiritual battle between the traditionalists who seek Allah in their personal and public lives and the secular fundamentalists. All right, so even the secular framework, okay, secular ideology has its own fundamentalists who seek to exclude Allah from human consciousness and eliminate those who are conscious of Allah from public life. So there will be this battle between the two forces. On the one side, those who believe in Allah and they are called as the traditionalists, and on the other hand, the other side, there are those secular fundamentalists, okay, hardcore ardent supporters of secularism who are not tolerant towards other people, okay, who believe in religion. Okay, Alhamdulillah. So these are the notes, the references, almarhum quotes from Karen Armstrong, okay, as we have seen earlier. Okay, these are Edward Said, Yusuf Qaradawi, okay, Chandra Muzaffar, alright. Okay, what about this? It is estimated that currently 1.3 billion people are struggling to survive in circumstances which are classified as critical poverty at that moment. Poverty crisis. As the developed world marches to the beat of globalization and preaches increased liberalization to developing countries, the parents of the 12 million children who will die this year from illnesses that are completely preventable have every right to hope that the South Summit will defend the most important human right, which is the human right to live, okay, to life. So, yes, as the superpowers march towards the so-called globalization, the poor, they are still struggling, okay, even to survive and to eat. Okay, that's enough. Right, that's it. Alhamdulillah. So we've managed to finish the first chapter. All right, and this first chapter is actually uh, it is a part of part one, okay, of the book. The book has three parts, and each part has 3 to 4 chapters. This is the first chapter within part one. Okay, Alhamdulillah. Anyone want to share any thoughts? As I mentioned, each session I will read and I will explain based on my limited understanding, and especially from political science because I'm from political science. So if you have anything that you can share with us, perhaps from the historical perspective, from the religious perspective that I may be lacking from Usuluddin, right? Because Almarhum Prof, he was from Usuluddin. So maybe people from Usuluddin can notice something that I didn't notice, right? Here we have Azhar, Dr. Azhar, Dr. Noraida. Do you want to say anything, Sister Noraida? Okay. Brother Bello, do you want to say anything about this part, particular part of the book? Oh, I cannot open my camera because of the internet. Uh, Maybe you can just pick up Confucianism. Confucianism is a Chinese religion, right? Meaning to say the founder was from there, Confucius, but it was quite ancient, much more. Uh, it was before even before Plato, before Jesus, before Plato, before Jesus, Confucianism. Confucius lived, the person who established Confucianism, uh, he was he lived before the period of ancient Greek thinkers, meaning to say before 2,500 years back, and also of course before Jesus. So before our prophet Isa. So it was there. Okay, Confucius was there, teaching his. He had his own disciples and their own. Later on, these disciples they were the ones who collected his teachings. When he taught, his students jotted down, then they combined this. But Confucianism usually it talks about the importance of tradition, tradition, the importance of tradition. So it was it is quite conservative, meaning to say he called for people to go back to the Chinese tradition to respect each, for example, rituals done, because for him, even if we cannot understand the wisdom of why we need to do those uh, rituals, but actually they are hidden wisdoms. Why? Because at that moment, people surrounding him they face these tribal wars in China. I'm just telling you this because I have been teaching Confucianism, okay, for my students for quite some time now, right? So that's why. Sorry, uh, the Chinese one. Uh, oh, he against Confucianism. Yes, yes. Yeah, yeah. I came across that one too. I heard one of my Chinese student. He told me, but I haven't read that one. I haven't really. But one of my students, he's from China. He told me that why not we talk about that too because he against Confucianism, right? Uh, right? So I said to him, oh, that's interesting, but we didn't have time to discuss further. Inshallah, maybe later we can discuss more on that. But Confucianism basically about that. Coming back to the tradition, he talks about the concept of gentleman, the importance of us to be a gentleman, to act like gentleman, and he talk about the concept of ren, to be compassion, human brotherhood, all right. Uh, so he was radical in his thinking, but by becoming a conservative, he became a radical, right? Usually, a radical person is the one who against tradition. But at that moment, he already became, okay, forgot already about their own tradition, therefore they face chaos, greedy here and there, they face power struggle, right? And therefore, he said to his students, right, we should go back to our tradition in order to improve the society. He even went from one place to the other, directly preach to the tribal leaders, and but they didn't accept him. But I'm not an expert in Confucianism, but I shared with you what I know. Okay, that's about it. But at least, yes, I think why Almarhum Prof is why he quoted from different religions, maybe because of the approach of the book, okay, the moderation. That's why I think I've read in the early part stated there he dedicated this book not only for Muslims but also for non-Muslims. But still, we believe that again. I think I stressed also last time. Of course, for Almarhum, Islam is the true religion, right? But he just want to say that uh, because if I'm not mistaken, Syed Hussein Nas, who he quoted just now, he is he is a perennial scholar. Perennial, I mentioned in the last session, a perennial scholar, they believes in uh, believes in that all religions are okay, right? Meaning to say, it's okay for you to follow your religion, then God will decide. So, but I believe Almarhum Prof. Kamal, he was not like that, right? But I heard Syed Hussein Nas, he is like that, a perennial scholar, right? All religions are, okay, then let God decide. Okay? You go back to your religion, Christians go back to your religion. So, but Almarhum Prof, I believe he was not like that. And when he wrote this one, he didn't say that. Wallahu alam, we haven't finished reading. Maybe there will be a part where he will say that I'm not a perennial scholar. Okay, he will stress uh, explicitly. Okay, thank you, brother Bello. Okay, okay. Any more? Anyone want to add anything, brother Sidik? Brother Sidik, do you want to say anything? Okay, nope. All right. Okay, thank you, brother Sidik. Are you from IUM or are you from the people outside? Because I think we shared this poster on the social media, so it is open to the public too. Oh, finance. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you, brother Sidik. Thank you for joining. All right. Uh, so yes, inshallah, we will continue the next session. Okay, the first and third Friday of the month, I will be reading two books from Almarhum. Okay, the first book is the book on corruption. The second book is this book, the book on moderation. Second and fourth week, Dr. Nurjana, she will read Almarhum books on the poem collection of poem entitled Salam Kasih. And then the fourth week, she will read social science from the worldview, natural science from the worldview of the Quran. All right. So Alhamdulillah, thank you for coming again. We end our session with Tasbih Kafarah and Suratul Asr. Okay, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Brother Bello.
Thank
Salam.
you so much.
Okay, salam, Shafiq.